Was happening? A happy Sunday night. Had to make sure what night it was, what day it was. Sunday night is the night. Free agency does not begin until tomorrow at noon when the negotiating period, the tampering period, whatever the NFL wants to call it, actually begins. We have to wait until tomorrow at noon. At least we thought we would have to wait until tomorrow at noon. But now we know. That we don't have to wait because the Patriots have made not one, but two moves tonight. They've made two moves tonight, two signings in free agency. One of them is a big signing. The other one, a good signing. I wouldn't say a gigantic signing, but another one where you look at and say, that makes a lot of sense. Let's begin with the biggest news of the night. Harold Landry ends up signing with the Patriots. Adam Schefter reported this just a little while ago. It is a 3-year, $43.5 million deal, $26 million fully guaranteed. Tom Pelissero actually had this news first before Schefter did. Want to make sure I credit the right person. But when you look at this deal, it makes sense. A lot of people have been talking about Harold Landry ending up with the Patriots because you know who you know. And Harold Landry knows Mike Vrabel. And Harold Landry knows Terrell Williams. And Vrabel and Williams know Landry. We've talked about this before, right? The idea of when you spend money, a lot of the time you want to spend the money on a player that you have a past with, a connection with. Last offseason, one of the toughest things about free agency for the Patriots was they were bringing in guys that did not have much history with the coaching staff. The coaching staff did not have a ton of connections. We talked about Gerard Mayo and his limited Rolodex, the fact that he didn't have a lot of coaches that he knew. He didn't have a lot of players that he coached because he did not move around the league. One of the things about the Patriots coaching staff this year, one of the advantages that they should have this year versus last year is the coaching staff, the connections, the history, the experience. So when you look at Harold Landry signing with the Patriots, it makes all the sense in the world because of that connection, because of the connection with Vrabel, because of that connection with Williams. They have the intel. They feel like they know this guy better than anybody else, and they obviously feel like they can get him back to the level he was going back a few years ago. Now, he has been highly productive with Tennessee. We know that. Highly productive pass rusher. The sack numbers are there. We all get why the Patriots are bringing him in. There are a couple of things about Landry that we have to get to that are concerns. We've got to look at this objectively. We've got to look at this and say, what are the concerns? What are the things that you look at that get you excited? Highly productive pass rusher, a guy that is going to come screaming off the edge. Now, he might not win as much one-on-one as he does cleaning up some of these sacks thanks to the other side or the interior pass rush, but he is extremely athletic. He is fast off the edge, and he is somebody that has produced at the NFL level, time in and time out. He's one of the more proven pass rushers that are actually available. When you start to tick down the names and you start to look at guys and their productivity, what they've done, guys that have been legitimate, you know, there are only so many options via free agency as we're learning over the past couple of days with a lot of the re-signings, including tonight. There's only so many guys that are going to have a chance to bring in and say, okay, we believe that this guy can produce for us at the NFL level. And with the history with Vrabel and Williams, I think this team has a lot more confidence that Landry can get the job done than Tennessee did. Of course, Landry was with Vrabel and Williams. You have, you know, the coaching change down there. You have a different idea of how to deal with, you know, defensively Landry and what he's going to do and what you ask of him to do. He feels like, hey, look, this is a perfect fit. This is a perfect fit for me, and I can get back to what I do best, and I will be comfortable. The coaches will be comfortable with me, and I'll be able to get back to where I was. So when you go through a regime change, sometimes guys aren't as productive. That could be part of the conversation when we discuss Landry. He just wasn't the same guy this past year for Tennessee. Now he turns 29 years old in June, so you would imagine he still has 2 or 3 years left. The 3-year deal makes sense. I would have to imagine it's $43.5 million. It's $26 million guaranteed. So, I mean, when you're looking at the numbers, It's not like you have to go bananas for this guy, right? I mean, it's a 3-year, $43.5 million deal. What is that, mathematically? It is, I'm awful with this on the fly. 11 would be 33. What is that? Almost $15 million a year. It's a shade under $15 million a year. So you're not paying him $20 million, $25 million. You're not you're not going to pay him at the top of the market. You're paying this guy less than $15 million a year. You're paying him $26 million fully guaranteed. So you're really looking at the first 2 years of this contract. He's going to cost you $15 million per. He's going to cost you the $26 million fully guaranteed. So it's not like you're breaking the bank for Landry. Getting a pass rusher with his history, his production, his experience within the Vrabel Williams system, getting that guy for less than $15 million a year, to me, it's smart business. Because even if he's not the same guy, even if he can't meet the expectations that Vrabel and Williams have for him from his time in Tennessee, even if he can't meet those expectations, you're not paying him $20 million, $25 million a year. This is a very good contract when you look at the AAV, when you look at the guaranteed money. If he can give you 2 to 3 good years, then it's more than worth this contract. So the money makes sense. The connection makes sense. The player makes an awful lot of sense. Got a lot more on this, but before I continue, help a brother out. Did a radio show from 2 to 5, got home, was ready to have some dinner, saw this news break, said the dinner can wait, the beers can wait, because I got to jump on the pod. I got to jump on to YouTube, and I got to break some of this news and have a conversation with the fine people that watch and listen to this program. So help us out. Doesn't take any money, doesn't take much of your time. Click that thumbs up as you watch us on YouTube. More thumbs means more eyeballs. That's how we beat the algorithm. So don't forget to like the podcast as you watch and listen. Don't forget to throw a comment in. How do you feel about it? Simple question tonight. Harold Landry, 3 years, $43.5 million is the deal, $26 million fully guaranteed. And yes, the Patriots made another signing. We will get to that in a little bit. But how do you feel about the Harold Landry signing? How do you feel about that? Throw a comment in. Let me know how you feel, because the likes and the comments, that's what helps us drive the algorithm here on YouTube. So don't forget to like, don't forget to comment. And I'll also mention this. Don't forget to subscribe. Trying to hit 6,500 subscribers by the NFL draft. We got about a month and a half left. We need about 400 subscribers to hit that goal of 6,500. You can help us out. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. All right, before I continue with my thoughts on Harold Landry, got to hit a couple of super chats here. Charlie with a $10 super chat. Great news. Trenches getting better. We've heard throughout the last, couple of months, ever since Vrabel came back to New England, we've heard that he wants the number one priority to be build the trenches. Now, when we think about trenches, we think about interior defensive linemen. We think about the idea of the offensive line, but it's also the edge. It's also being able to create that pass rush, getting some help from the outside, right? So now when you look at this idea of having Landry on the edge, you add another edge if you can get that done. And then we know that the Patriots reportedly have a ton of interest in Milton Williams from Philadelphia. We don't know what's going to happen with Christian Barmore. We keep our fingers crossed. But if you have Barmore, Milton Williams, Harold Landry, that's 3 out of your 4 on the defensive line. And guess what? You still have Keion White. Does Vrabel believe that Keion White is an edge? Does he think he's an interior defensive lineman? We'll have to wait and see. But this is how you do it. You attack the lines of scrimmage. So if they can get Milton Williams tomorrow from Philly to go along with Landry, to go along with Barmore, those are 3 talented guys on the defensive line, and 3 guys that can get after the quarterback, 3 guys that are aggressive, which is exactly what the Patriots want to do. They want to get after the quarterback. Another super chat, $5. I was jumping for joy, Nick. Pats aren't afraid to pull the trigger finally. $5 super chat. Thank you, Ryan. I think there was some concern, some rumblings of concern on Twitter when we saw a couple of guys sign, which we'll get to a little bit later. But again, I've said this before. I'll say it again, and I say it for a reason. You're not going to sign everybody. You can't get your hopes up until somebody officially hits free agency, until they're officially available. And until that moment happens, it doesn't really matter. And when they become officially available, you have to hope that they like you and you like them and the money works. That's why don't get your hopes up, through the roof for free agency, because we see it year after year. Tobias, the $5 super chat. Keep up the good work, Nick. We'll be tuning into all your coverage this offseason just like last year. Thank you, Tobias. We will be very busy this week, I believe. We will be very, very busy cranking out breaking news podcasts whenever the news tells us to break it. So we will get to that. There is another report here from Diana Rossini saying that Morgan Moses, of course, of the Jets, offensive lineman, right tackle, Moses is going to enter into free agency, according to Rossini. And one of the teams that has been showing interest and will be showing interest in Morgan Moses is the Patriots. So again, you go back to this idea of trying to build through the trenches. You've got Harold Landry, defensive lineman, defensive edge. They're looking at Morgan Moses now, who's going to hit free agency. Now, Moses is an older dude, as we know. He wasn't great last year, but you got Caden Wallace that you're trying to, build up, get some competition. So that would make some sense. Meanwhile, some other big news in the NFL just a moment ago. It's going to be that kind of a night. I've got my eyes on Twitter as I have this conversation with all of you. Josh Allen just reached an agreement on a new record-setting 6-year, $330 million contract that includes $250 million guaranteed. That is according to Adam Schefter. So Josh Allen just signed a gigantic contract with the Buffalo Bills, guaranteeing $250 million. That's one reason why you want to build the trenches. That is one reason why you need to address that defensive line. $5 super chat from Nelson. This is a great signing. They're doing what they said they were going to do and pull the trigger for good players. Bring on DK, as in Metcalf, LOL. The latest on DK Metcalf is it sounds like he wants to go to the Chargers. Now, do the Chargers want him? We'll have to wait and see. As I've said from the beginning, I always find it unlikely that the Patriots will land some of the tippity top of the food chain here. We'll see if I'm wrong. I wouldn't bank on DK Metcalf being a Patriot. I do think, as I said on the radio show I did today, that we're hearing all of this stuff about Seattle dropping the price and DK Metcalf being open-minded to cold weather and playing for a non-contender. That's trying to leverage another team, but it's also telling the Patriots that, it could actually happen if you make it happen, if you want to make it happen. $5 super chat from Robin Fish. What should we do if Chris Godwin is re-signed by the Buccaneers? Look, I think that you jump into free agency. My plan was that you sign Joshua Palmer, because I think if you want a true legitimate wide receiver one, a bona fide alpha, that bona fide alpha is more likely going to come via trade. Maybe, just maybe, you can draft a guy, but as we know, with the draft history at that position for this football team, I'm not big into the idea of that happening. By the way, the latest on Chris Godwin, 5 minutes ago, Diana Rossini posted the following. Many teams around the league are waiting to see if Godwin will hit free agency or if Tampa will bring him back. The plan has always been to test free agency, but as we saw last year with Mike Evans, Tampa can get deals done. This goes back to what I was saying a few moments ago. Never get too excited. Never take anything for granted. And we have no idea if Godwin is going to even get to free agency. If he gets to free agency, then you have the conversation. But even then, don't get your hopes up, because Godwin can go to a number of different places. So free agency has not even started yet. It begins tomorrow at noon. We'll be all over it. But, when you look at guys like Godwin, there's always a chance that in the final moments, they decide to stay. And we saw that with Ronnie Stanley last night, deciding to stay with Baltimore. Even though he signed for less money than he would have made on the free market, he signed in Baltimore. He wants to stay in Baltimore. He's comfortable there. All right, back to Landry. He obviously feels a huge need for the Patriots. This Patriots pass rush last year was abominable. It was gross, disgusting, horrific, bad, terrible, however you want to put it, however you want to paint it. It wasn't good enough. They did not get to the quarterback nearly nearly as consistently as you want to in the NFL. And that pass rush led DeMarcus Covington and company to call a lot of blitzes. The blitzes didn't work, so now you weren't getting home via blitz, which left your coverage susceptible. It was a perfect storm. It was a nightmare. You have to get after the quarterback. What did Mike Vrabel say during his introductory press conference, right? They want to protect Drake May. They want to get after the opposing quarterback. The opposition's quarterback should never feel comfortable. That's the goal. So the pass rush last year was terrible for the Patriots. They had to figure out a way how to get pass rush talent. That's why even if Landry is not the same guy he was, 2, 3, 4 years ago, Harold Landry is still an upgrade. Landry is still somebody that has proven that he can get to the quarterback. And so when you are trying to search and find ways to impact the opposing quarterback, one way is interior pressure, which is, I think, the most impactful. Inside pass rush, over the center, right at the quarterback, and it forces them to the outside, and then that's when you clean it up, right? And Harold Landry has a number of clean it up sacks. And so I would imagine if the Patriots, if you're sitting there and you're Mike Vrabel and you're thinking about how you're going to piece this together, if you can bring in somebody like Milton Williams, as I mentioned earlier, and you have Christian Barmore hopefully coming back, fingers crossed. If not Barmore, then let's say you have Keon White on the inside, and you are creating that pressure from the inside. If you're creating pressure with your interior defensive line, now you've got the guys with speed on the outside that are able to get after the quarterback and chase down the quarterback. Landry is one of those guys. The pass rush is one of the top needs. I've said this, right? Edge was actually my number 2 need during this offseason. It wasn't wide receiver. My number 1 need is tackle. Left tackle specifically, but you could talk about the right tackle as well, right? The right tackle, left tackle, number 1 need. Your second need to me, if you're writing a priority list, the second need was edge. Defensive end, pass rusher. Well, now you've checked off a box. I think you still need at least another pass rusher, if not 2, but you start at least addressing your second biggest need, and that's with Landry. By the way, Josina Anderson tweeted out just a moment ago, a league source says the impression was that Landry was initially unsure and needed some convincing to come to New England. The 3-year, $43.5 million deal evidently seals the deal. League source tells Josina Anderson that Harold Landry wanted $17 million a year. So, couple things from this tweet by Josina Anderson. Number 1, the idea of Mike Vrabel and this coaching staff being able to recruit free agents, being able to sell their vision, being able to sell them on the idea of why do you want to be a Patriot? Back-to-back 4-win seasons. We've been bad. Why do you want to come here? Massachusetts taxes, right? Cold weather. It's not an easy place to sell. Now, of course, Landry is an easier sell because he knows Vrabel. He has that relationship with both he and Terrell Williams. But if you look at Josina Anderson's post a moment ago, number 1, Vrabel and company did a good job of selling Landry to come to New England. They sold him on the idea. They sold him on what they're building, and they did enough to get the job done and to bring Landry in. The second thing is the fact that Landry apparently wanted $17 million a year. He signs for less than, $15 million a year, which tells you that the Patriots did a good enough job of selling him that he didn't go for the very top of his market or what he wanted. He did not have to. He did not have to, look at the situation with the Patriots and say, I'll wait. Because Landry could have waited. He could have waited until free agency. Teams have cap space. A lot of teams have cap space. Harold Landry could have been patient and said, no, I want $17 million a year. I'm not going to sign unless you give me the $17 million a year. So the fact that the Patriots were able to talk him into the idea of being a Patriot, sold him on the vision, and then got him for less money than what he desired, both of those things, very important. Very important. So the Josina Anderson post brings you in to this, idea of what Vrabel can try to do and try to recruit and try to sell guys on what you have here. and to actually sign a guy for less than, he was looking for, right? And I see Ricky Paleo. I know, Ricky, ask high. I get it. But again, he could have waited it out. He could have waited it out. He could have said, I want $17 million, and I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait. $17 million is what he was making in Tennessee back when you look at 2022. So he wanted the same kind of contract. He wanted the same kind of money he was making in Tennessee. He could have waited. Now, eventually, if this happened 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the road, then I think, Ricky, your point is a better one. It's the fact that, yeah, he wanted $17 million a year, but he couldn't get $17 million a year. So he finally acquiesced and signed the contract. But he's signing this deal before free agency, which I think gives you more gravity towards this idea that Vrabel sold him on, hey, we're not going to get to $17 million. This is what we can offer you. This is what we have to sell you. Take it or leave it. Yes or no? And he said yes. All right, a couple of other thoughts on Harold Landry, and then I'll get to another Patriots signing and some other news from around the league that impacts the Patriots. Signing Harold Landry allows you now to have less of that need come draft time, right? To have less of that need for the contract, for the draft, to look at, okay, we need an edge, or we need 2 or 3 edges, right? We need positions to fill, and we don't want to be stuck. Last year, the Patriots drafted purely on need. That's not where you want to be. You don't want to be drafting based purely on need, okay? You don't want to be in that spot. You don't want to be in that kind of a situation. So having Landry at edge means that you don't have to necessarily reach for an edge in the draft because you've now filled that need, at least part of that need, okay? So you are less concerned about trying to fill the need in the draft by signing Landry. Now, here are some of the things I mentioned. We got to be objective about this. We've got to look at the good and the bad. I just gave you a lot of the good, the optimistic side, the advantages of signing Landry. There are a couple of things that you got to watch out for. Landry reportedly played at a lot less weight than he had played before in Tennessee. Now, what's the deal behind that? Why was he so much lighter? Do Vrabel and Williams want him to play at that weight? Or do they say, you know what? We want you to stick where you're at with Tennessee. So why was he so much thinner last year? Are they going to ask him to put that weight back on? If they ask him to put that weight back on, how does that affect somebody who's turning 29 in June? Legitimate question. Secondly, when you look at what Phil Perry has said on NBC Sports Boston, Phil Perry has said that Landry last year ran hot and cold. So his motor wasn't always running. Why was that? Was Landry's motor not running all the time because he was on a terrible team, which of course the Patriots could end up being terrible this year? Did that impact his motivation? Was there something behind the scenes that kept him from running hot, consistently? So why was he hot and cold? Why was the motor hot and cold last year? I don't know. But I'm sure the Patriots and Mike Vrabel have had conversations with Landry and Landry's representation. And Vrabel, I'm sure, is betting on himself and betting on Terrell Williams to get Landry motivated, to get him running hot, to keep that motor running. Vrabel and Williams obviously feel like they have what it takes to get the most out of Landry. They're betting on themselves. By the way, did you see that picture of Mike Vrabel at the casino last night? I'm sure you did. So, again, Landry played thinner last year. What is his weight going to be this season? How will that impact his play on the field? He ran hot and cold. Will he have that consistent motor this year with Vrabel and Williams motivating him and trying to get the best out of him? We'll have to wait and see. When you look at, pass rush win rate, Landry's was down last year under 5%. That's not very good. You're going to need more from Landry. You need more from Landry than 4.8% pass rush win rate. That's not going to be ideal. So it really comes down to Vrabel and Williams. Can Vrabel and Williams get more out of Landry than what Tennessee got out of him last year? Or was Landry in Tennessee last year, was that the beginning of the ultimate decline for a guy who's getting closer to 30 years old every single day? Again, I would say it. Vrabel and Williams obviously believe that it's the former, not the latter. I would also not be surprised if Landry plays a little bit more in a rotation than playing consistent snaps, right? I think that would be another part of the plan, is that you're not rolling out Landry to play all 3 downs every single possession defensively. So maybe you rotate him a little bit more. You know, maybe he's Josh Uche, the idea of like Joshua Uche, but multiplied, right? Not so much like just third down pass rusher, but maybe, you know, he's not going to be out there playing every single snap. He's going to be rotating in and out, and then you're going to give him opportunities to pin his ears back, get after the quarterback. But it's something that, you know, when you look at it, if you can add another defensive edge or two, now you are creating this rotation. And, you know, if you have Landry who needs a breath, needs to take a moment, needs to go to the sidelines and relax or whatever the case may be, then he can do that. So maybe that's part of the plan here. I'm sure that we'll find out as we get closer to camp. The Patriots really, I mean, they can't wait around for what ifs. And when you look at the available free agents, how many of those guys are actually going to get to free agency? How many of those guys actually are willing to sign in New England? How many of those guys are the Patriots capable of matching the money that they want? So again, you've got to look at what is actually on the shopping list. And Harold Landry has concerns. Harold Landry, there's questions about him, but there's also some advantages, and there's an optimistic outlook in certain ways as well for him. So you're not going to find a flawless player most of the time in free agency. You're going to sign guys who have question marks. Nobody, I think, is going to be perfect for you. So who's available, at what money, and do they want to come here? If you're the Patriots, you can't sit on your ass. You can't be sitting on your hands waiting for the next guy to become available. Because what happens if that guy doesn't become available? What if that guy doesn't want to come to New England? So when you have an opportunity to strike and bring somebody in who's been productive at the NFL level that you know have a history with and fills a need, then you should do it. Then you should do it. And that's what the Patriots did. You can't be sitting around and waiting, because if you end up empty-handed, we're then talking about the Patriots can't get to the quarterback in 2025 again. So you got to do what you got to do when you have the opportunity to do it. You can't sit around and wait, because the Patriots haven't had a ton of success the last couple of years, right, in free agency. It's not like everybody is banging down the door. Now, when you look at free agency, I said this on the show I did today on 98.5. When you look at free agency, you know, it's a situation where there's so much talent on the offensive side that's been signed already. And there's been also a lack of, you know, depth when it comes to offensive talent on the offensive side. You know, I would not be surprised if the Patriots spend a little bit more money defensively than we thought they would. I would not be surprised if they spend more money defensively than offensively in free agency, because there's a deeper amount of talent on the defensive side. So you bring Landry in, but again, you're looking at Milton Williams. You're looking at some other guys. Carlton Davis, according to Mike Silver today in The Athletic, the Patriots are very interested in Carlton Davis, the cornerback, somebody to put opposite of Gonzalez. So I would not be surprised if the Patriots spend a little bit more money defensively than we thought they would, given the options that they have. All right, let's jump to a couple of super chats before I get to the other signing today, because the Patriots had another signing aside from Harold Landry I want to get to. Don't forget, as you watch, to like, comment, and subscribe. That's how we beat the algorithm. That's how we build up the traffic. So again, like, comment, and subscribe. I really like the signing. I wouldn't say I love it, but I really like it. It makes sense to me. Justin TF Patriot, $5 super chat. Thank you, Justin. Landry and Hooper, not even Monday yet. Hopefully good things to come. Hashtag Nick's Beer Money. Well, I appreciate you, Justin. I will get to Hooper in a minute. Thank you for the $5 super chat. McGriffith 3. I like it. Fixes an area of need with a proven professional. Opens up what you can do at number 4. Hopefully helps Keon White play a bit more freely. If they sign Williams, that would be a scary line. Yeah, I mean, as I said a little bit earlier, McGriffith's 3, and thanks for the $10 super chat. When you look at what the Patriots are trying to build here, and that's not necessarily, something that's going to happen overnight. But, if you look at how things are built, if you get Milton Williams in here, now you're building that line. All right, we got some breaking news. According to Tom Pelissero, this isn't really surprising to me. DK Metcalf has been traded. He has been traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are sending their 2025 second-round pick to Seattle to make the deal happen. So DK Metcalf is now a Pittsburgh Steeler. And again, not shocked. Not shocked because Pittsburgh was in on Brandon Ayuk. Pittsburgh wanted Ayuk, and they were trying to make that deal happen. The Steelers have been trying to acquire a wide receiver 1 for the last couple of years, at least. And, Pickens is not that guy. So DK Metcalf goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I just want to pull up this draft pick. It's the second-round pick for Pittsburgh, so I want to see where that sits. So let me pull this up quickly. So it's the 52nd pick. So DK Metcalf goes to Pittsburgh for the 52nd pick in the draft, second-round pick from Pittsburgh, and it looks like Metcalf is going to get a big contract extension, which is not a surprise, as part of this deal. Metcalf is going to get $150 million on a 5-year deal. So there is your $30 million a year that Metcalf wanted to hit. And I would say this. This is either one of two things. This could be that DK Metcalf just wanted to play for the Steelers more than he wanted to play for the Patriots, which is certainly possible. We know a lot of players in the league. A lot of players in the league want to, play for Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin's done a great job of building the culture, and players believe in Mike Tomlin. So it could be as easy as DK Metcalf saying, no, I'd rather play for Pittsburgh than play for New England. Because when you look at it, cold weather. Drake May versus a complete unknown at quarterback. So either one of two things happened here. Either the Patriots had a second-round pick on the table, and the Steelers had a second-round pick on the table. Both teams were willing to pay $30 million a year for Metcalf, and Metcalf chose the Steelers. The other possibility is that the Patriots did not want to give up their second-round pick. And when you look at it, again, the Steelers, they're in the 50s. The Steelers are at pick 52. The Patriots are at pick 38. So the Patriots' second-round pick has a hell of a lot more value than the Steelers' second-round pick. I would have to imagine that the Patriots were not willing to give up that second-round pick. And the Steelers obviously were. I would also have to imagine that if the Patriots had a second-round pick in the middle of the second round, they might be more willing to give that pick up for DK Metcalf. But because the second-round pick is at the top of the second round, they did not feel like that was a pick they should give up for DK Metcalf. So we don't know what happened. We have no idea if DK said thanks but no thanks to New England, or the Patriots were unwilling to meet the price as far as draft capital to make that trade for DK Metcalf. Now, I said it on the show today. I would have dealt a second-round pick for DK Metcalf. I would have made that trade. I would have dealt the second-round pick for Metcalf. I would have given Metcalf the money. I understand people saying that that's a stretch. It's too much to pay. I get it. It's debatable. But the Patriots need a lead receiver. And DK Metcalf is that guy. Is he flawless? No, he's not flawless. He has issues. He drops the football a little too much for my liking. He drops it a little too often, so he has trouble with drops. He's not the most, pristine route runner in the league, so that's an issue. He also has emotions and all that stuff, as we've seen. He gets into some, back and forth on the field, and that's that's impacted his play. That's impacted his production at times. So I would have made the deal. If I were the Patriots and they had the chance to make the deal for DK Metcalf, and you have to imagine they did, right? Again, unless DK Metcalf said, I want to go to Pittsburgh, it's hard for me to believe that DK Metcalf would say, I'd rather go to Pittsburgh and play at a place that doesn't have a quarterback right now instead of playing with Drake May. I find it hard to believe. And obviously, the Patriots had the better second-round pick than the Steelers, so Seattle would want the Patriots' second-round pick instead of Pittsburgh's second-round pick. So if DK Metcalf did not shut down the deal like Ayuk did last year, I would have done the deal if I were the Patriots. I would have done that deal. I would have traded the second-round pick for Metcalf. Now, the contract, I want to go back to the contract that Metcalf agreed to. Here's the thing. He had $18 million left on his old deal. So Tom Pelissero says that Metcalf's actually getting a 4-year, $132 million extension. So DK Metcalf is not going to make $30 million a year. On this extension, he's actually going to make $33 million a year. So the Steelers pay Metcalf $33 million on the AAV. So that's the contract. $33 million a year and a second-round pick. Again, did Metcalf want to play for the Steelers and not the Patriots? Did the Patriots not want to meet that price? We might never know, but I'm sure we will at some point find out some of the details. And if you're the Patriots, you're now obviously left with Chris Godwin, and you hope that Godwin gets to free agency. If not, you're looking back at Brandon Ayuk, and you're having that conversation again. So DK to the Steelers. All right, let's get to the other signing for the Patriots tonight. Austin Hooper has re-signed with the Patriots. It's a 1-year, $5 million deal, up to $7 million. Hooper was part of my offseason plan. I like this move a lot. Hooper had a good season in 2024. So a productive season. Again, we talk about the chemistry, the connection. When you look at the history, Austin Hooper played for Mike Vrabel in Tennessee. So both players today that signed on the dotted line played for Mike Vrabel in Tennessee. Harold Landry played for Vrabel in Tennessee, and Austin Hooper played for Vrabel in Tennessee. So both guys have that history with Mike Vrabel. It's obviously not back-breaking money. 1 year, $5 million, up to $7 million in incentives. And just like the Harold Landry conversation, you don't have to draft a tight end now. You don't have to feel like you have to draft a tight end because you've got Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper. You still have Jaheim Bell. You have Jake Westover. Now, of course, tight end is very deep in the draft, so maybe the Patriots still draft a tight end, but you don't feel like you have to do that by bringing Hooper back into the mix, back into the fold. So I like the signing of Hooper. I really like the signing of Landry. I think the Patriots did some good business tonight. Do I think it's great business? No, I don't. I don't think it's great business. I don't think it's top-tier business, but you addressed two of your needs. You addressed defensive end. You've got some depth now, hopefully, that you can build out, but you brought in an edge, which you needed to do. And you also got your second tight end back into the mix with Hunter Henry. So again, you're addressing needs in free agency so you don't have to reach for need in the draft. That is so critical. It's such a big part of this conversation. It's such a big part of this conversation. You know, finding ways to address needs without going into the draft and feeling like you've got to bend over backwards to make that happen. So it makes a lot of sense. All right, some other news. Some other news that we got to get to here. Again, DK Metcalf traded to Pittsburgh. Harold Landry signs with the Patriots. Austin Hooper re-signs with the Patriots. Ronnie Stanley staying in Baltimore. Obviously, we read enough and we heard enough that Stanley was the number one priority for the Patriots, but he had to get to free agency. He did not get to free agency. Baltimore signs him to a 3-year, $60 million deal. So $20 million in the AAV. The first 2 years of this deal, $22 million in the AAV. So now for the Patriots, you have to imagine that Cam Robinson is at the top of the list. I went through the Cam Robinson stuff. I was not the biggest fan of Cam Robinson earlier last week, but then I did some research. I did some digging, right? Because I was looking at what happened with Cam Robinson in the playoffs. He gave up 12 pressures. He gave up 12 pressures for Minnesota in the playoff game this year. He had a bad year for Jacksonville and for Minnesota. However, Pro Football Focus wrote about Robinson this week. And when you look at what Robinson has done before last year, right? Before last season, Robinson, since 2021, when you look at it, his pass blocking grade ranked 13th among qualified tackles. So Cam Robinson, before this past season where he kind of went off the rails a little bit, he's been a top 15 pass protecting tackle in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus. And even last year, Cam Robinson's pass blocking grade for PFF was 67.2. When you look at the Patriots' offensive tackle pass blocking grade, it was 50.9 last year. So Cam Robinson at his absolute worst was way better than what you had last year. And Cam Robinson at his best is a top 15 pass protecting tackle in football. So I don't think Cam Robinson would be a bad signing. And of course, we go back to the connection. We go back to the history. Doug Marrone drafted Robinson when he was in Jacksonville. So I don't think that would be a terrible signing for the Patriots, especially given what your options are. Again, you're not going to find perfect players out there. You have to look at what reasonably is available to you and what are you capable of doing to upgrade at certain spots. And while Cam Robinson might not be an all-world left tackle, he has been a good left tackle for the majority of his career. And he would be a big-time upgrade over Vidarian Lowe. So you got to look at what's out there, what you need, and what's reasonable, and what you actually have an opportunity to get. So Cam Robinson, with Ronnie Stanley off the market, I would imagine that Cam Robinson is up at the top of the list. Of course, we've talked about Dan Moore. You look at some of the other guys that are going to be available. Interestingly enough, it's not obviously super deep, as you would imagine, but you do have Jalen Moore. Jalen Moore chipped in at San Francisco when Trent Williams was out. He has played left tackle. Jalen Moore had a pretty good season. For the 49ers this year. So we'll see what happens at tackle. More tough news. Jamien Sherwood, who was one of my guys. I love the idea of Sherwood playing for the Patriots. Linebacker, he's about 216, 217. He hits like a truck. He is very good in coverage. He is fantastic. When it comes to, covering guys, his athleticism, which is absolutely what they need. Jamien Sherwood stays with the Jets. That was tough. I would say Dre Greenlaw is at the top of the list for the Patriots. If he hits free agency. Greenlaw injured last year, coming off the injury that he had during the Super Bowl for San Francisco. Highly productive guy when he's healthy. Very talented when he's healthy. So Dre Greenlaw is a guy that would be near the top of my list if I were the Patriots. Other news, Davante Adams went to the Rams. This is not surprising. 2 years, $46 million. I think he got like $26, $27 million guaranteed. It makes a ton of sense for each side. Davante Adams wanted to be on the West Coast. LA's on the West Coast. LA wanted to get a receiver, an upgrade over Cooper Kupp. That's what they do. So they bring in Adams. Adams gets his 2-year deal with good money up front. Makes a lot of sense. Davante gets to stay on the West Coast. He gets to play for Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay. That should, absolutely result in some production. So Davante Adams going to LA is not really a surprise. Not a shocker. I want to pull this one up. Yeah, Nick, make excuses for the Patriots as usual. Just face it, we were not ever going to get anybody. Great, we only got Randy Moss because we got them for nothing. So this is a frustration. This is a frustration post by Mr. Snoopy, and I get it. But again, what's available? I would have traded for DK Metcalf. If DK Metcalf was willing to play for the Patriots, I would have made that trade. Some people think that's a reach. I would have made the deal. Now we'll see what they do. If they end up drafting Travis Hunter at 4 and he's your wide receiver 1, then it's not the end of the world. He's not the same guy as DK Metcalf. But if you're able to draft Travis Hunter and sign somebody like Darius Slayton or Joshua Palmer who can play on the outside, it's not the end of the world. So what's available to you? Who wants to play here? You can't force guys to play here. Again, if DK Metcalf was open to the idea of playing in New England, I would have made that deal. I understand the frustration, but you've got to understand that there are a lot of fans of a lot of teams in the NFL that have gone through this song and dance every single year in and year out. Free agency, I have to keep pounding this. Free agency is not the answer to build your team and sustain success. It's just not. This team has to draft better. You see it right now. A lot of the money that's being spent in the NFL right now is being spent to re-sign guys. That's what's happening. Teams draft well, they retain their talent, they spend money on the talent that they want to retain because they did a good job drafting. When you don't draft well, you don't have quality players to retain. So now you're left with trying to pick up other players on free agency. And the problem is that if a player gets to free agency, most of the time that player is getting to free agency because they're flawed, whether it's injury, whether it's age, whether it's other question marks, character, whatever it is. So this cycle, this bad cycle for the Patriots, it begins and ends with the draft. You should not have to rely on free agency every offseason to get better. Again, you can't walk in with, hopes through the roof, thinking that you're going to go out there and sign everybody that you want and just miraculously turn things over. Tennessee spent a ton of money last year in the offseason, and they're drafting first in April. They stunk. They traded for L'Jarius Sneed and paid him. They paid Calvin Ridley. They paid Tony Pollard. I talked about this on the radio today. You can look at the top spending teams in cash last year, and many of them did not make the playoffs. You can look towards the bottom of cash spending, and a number of those teams actually made the playoffs. It begins and ends with the draft. Pats Pro, $5 super chat. I'm going to crash out. I just know the Pats cheaped out. So Pats Pro is saying, look, they cheaped out with DK Metcalf. And again, if that is the story, then it's disappointing. And, the Patriots decided to not make the deal. If that is the case, not bring in DK, not pay him the $33 million, not trade the second-round pick, and now we have to see. They've got to pivot. They've got to pivot at wide receiver. If they end up signing Chris Godwin and drafting Travis Hunter, then I don't think many people are upset about DK Metcalf. But those are two big ifs. Godwin has to hit free agency. Hunter's got to be there at 4. Two huge ifs. So we'll see what happens. Specta Dez, Hunter isn't the solution to the Pats' problem. I think he's certainly part of the solution. Travis Hunter has potential to be a number 1 receiver in the league. He's got the potential to be a lead receiver at the NFL level. He put all of his focus and all of his time, at one position in the NFL. He has the potential to be a lead receiver. Am I telling you he's got the potential to be a top 5 guy? No. His comp is Devontae Smith. But would you take Devontae Smith? I would. Nick, do you think the Pats ever offered their second? I feel like they didn't. G. And I don't know if they did, and I'm sure, again, that will come out. I'm sure that we'll get some details. I hope we get some details, but I would imagine the Patriots did not want to give up that 38th pick. And again, when you look at Pittsburgh, they're drafting 52nd in the second round. It's much easier to, it's much easier to go out there and deal the 52nd pick than it is the 38th pick. So, all right, that'll do it. I got to run, go eat. Was not planning this. I'm starving. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Tomorrow, we're going to be all over it. If something breaks later tonight, we'll be all over it. That's what we do. We'll be right back. Doing this again, Terry with the $50 super chat. Thank you, Nick. Late getting here, but it seems likely at Pat Pro could be right. I hope we did not lose DK because of money. I don't know if it was because of money. I don't know if it was because of the pick. I don't know if it was because of both, Terry. But again, if they don't bring in a lead receiver, if they don't bring in a legitimate talent at wide receiver, whether it's via the draft or via a trade or whatever the case may be, if they don't get that done, then yes, they should absolutely be eviscerated. And I'm not happy that if they had the chance to get DK, they decided not to get DK, because I think, he's a number one receiver. He's that outside guy you've been looking for, and that's very disappointing. Thank you so much for the $50 super chat, Terry. It is very much appreciated. Again, if something breaks, we'll be all over it. I got to run, grab some dinner. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern is the usual time that we do this. It's called Everything Pats, a New England Patriots podcast. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night.